Hi and welcome back. I'm excited to bring you another episode here in our Azure tutorial series. Today we're actually going to go over just how to create a basic file share in Microsoft Azure. So the first thing you're going to do is take a look, once you've logged into Microsoft Azure, you're going to want to just create a new storage account. In a nutshell, the way that storage works in Azure is it's multi-tiered. You have to start with a storage account. Inside the storage account, you have to place containers, and then within the container, you can place blobs, files, tables, or queries. Those last four items essentially are the files that you deal with every day, just fancy names for them. But we'll address that in detail here in a moment. So let's get to exactly what you have to do in order to create this file share. So we need to create a new resource. There's a number of ways to do that. I'll just show you a couple now. Obviously, the first and most common one is you just click New. From New, we click Storage, and then so on. But I just wanted to show you, there's a number of other ways to do that. As you saw there, I clicked All Resources. You can also click here on the side for All Resources. Excuse me, and then you just go ahead and click Add, and it brings you up the new blade, exactly the same as if you hit the plus sign over here. But let's get started. So either way, however you get here, we're going to go ahead and hit New, go to Storage, and we're going to create a storage account. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is select a name. Now this name needs to be unique, and it also needs to be all lowercase with no special characters or spaces. So I'm going to call it D&H Lab Test. That is available. It actually creates a URL surrounding that storage account. So now dnhlabtest.core.windows.net will access this storage account once it's created. The next step here is our deployment model. Briefly put, this is the platform in which you'd like this storage account to be run on. The existing platform, the one that we are training on right now, is called the Resource Manager, the Azure Resource Manager. You'll hear it abbreviated as ARM or ARM several times as well. Classic is the classic platform, and it is just as functional as ARM to a degree. Most would argue that ARM has a much more user-friendly interface. The reason Classic still exists is because the older platform had a few features that are still not ported over to the new one. So in those special niche sort of cases, you might want to use the Classic deployment model. Next, we're going to have what kind of storage account. So general purpose or blob storage. Now, general purpose is, just as it sounds, going to be generally what you're going to use most of the time. This gives you access to Azure storage services such as tables, queues, files, blobs, which we'll talk about in a moment, and Azure VMs. In fact, it's pretty important to note that a general purpose storage account is required for any Azure VM. Now, the general purpose accounts are broken into two different performance tiers: standard storage and premium. Now, standard is your standard storage account. It can be used for all the services that I mentioned before, and it's priced comparably. The premium storage, of course, is going to be for slightly more, and it is going to provide you with slightly better performance, but please keep in mind, premium general purpose storage accounts are only used for Azure VMs. They cannot be used for any other purpose. So, but that's something to consider when you're creating a VM. If you would like a high performance drive, this is the drive to use, then it is available to you. Now, the next type of storage account that you can choose from is BLOB Storage account. It is an account type that was a storage account type that was created for Azure by Microsoft. And essentially, it is a storage account for unstructured data, which it refers to as blobs or objects. This could be anything from multimedia to database data, and the idea is that it is a drive used for unsequential database information. So it works the same way as a general purpose drive. You still get the same great durability, availability, scalability, and performance features that you do, but you also get an API consistency that allows it to be tied into applications, line of business applications that require either simply only block or append block storage, or blob storage, I mean. This allows it to be thoroughly integrated into a line of business application. Of course, this is for a more, say, unique situations, so it's something to absolutely be aware of, but to consider when you're selecting these two, that most of the time you're going to select general purpose. Now, following that, you're going to then select what type of replication. Starting from the least protected, let's call it that, to the most, we start with LRS, or locally redundant storage. This is exactly as it sounds. This means that the data that you're going to be storing in this account will be replicated locally in that same data center. Not necessarily the same machines, but the same data center, the same physical location. All data in any Azure storage account is replicated 3 times. The next one up traditionally would have been GRS, or Geo-redundant storage. This is just the next logical step. It essentially duplicates your data into multiple geographic locations, thus protecting you from any sort of like natural disaster that might have put the original storage location in harm's way. It's more expensive, but it gives you that extra level of redundancy. And once again, in each of those locations, the data is recorded 3 times. In between those, as far as price and level of protection, would be zone redundant storage, or ZRS. ZRS essentially is locally redundant storage, except that even though it's replicated 3 times within the same data center, it then is replicated again potentially within 2 or 3 additional regions within that data center. This just gives you an extra level of redundancy, but keeps costs a little bit lower. So this is definitely a viable option for SMB as well. Finally, we have RA-GRS, read access geo-redundant storage. This is the most expensive, mostly because the most resources are being utilized in an RA-GRS level of redundancy. It does the geo-redundant storage, putting the storage in multiple physical geographic locations, but then also gives you an additional 3rd geographic location where the data is updated, I believe, daily as read access only. This essentially just gives you further availability to your data. So this is for some very considered to be absolutely critical information that you need for your company. RA-GRS is a good option for that. For the purposes of this demonstration, though, we're just going to go with LRS and just move forward. Encryption's pretty self-explanatory. Of course, for this, we're just going to go ahead and keep it disabled. The subscription that you choose is merely just where the funding for this particular resource is going to come from. This is going to be a very common field in every action that you do in Azure. You need to indicate where the funding is coming for this particular resource. In the case of CSP, when you've signed up for Azure on CSP, you have a single subscription listed. In this case, ours is simply called Leoni12 here, which was the name of the demo account that we created. So we only have one listed. Of course, if you're familiar with Azure and you have other methods of funding, they would all be listed here separately. Unfortunately, at this time, your CSP subscription cannot be combined with that same domain, especially with that same interface within Azure. Okay, next then we have resource group. This is, again, going to be something that you're going to deal with every single resource that you create. You need to add it to a group. In our case, I'm going to add this to D&H Lab Demo, which was a resource group I created earlier. If I hadn't, though, of course, you just click Create New, put in a name, and you're good to go. And then finally, location. And this is the physical geographic location to where your data will reside. I'm going to select East US to give us the least amount of latency, and that is it. I will go ahead and hit Create. And up in the upper right-hand corner, under our notifications, it will start to show that a deployment is in progress. I can actually select this to bring up the blade for that deployment and see where we're at with it. But we're going to wait a few moments until this is deployed, and then we'll continue with our process. Okay, our deployment was successful. Again, you're able just to click within your notifications to bring up the blade if you hadn't already. So that's what I will do. And here's our storage account. As you can see, it's labeled DH-Lab Test. Some of the monitoring features you will find that are going to be unavailable due to the subscription method through CSP. That is normal when you see these, but just keep that in mind. That a lot of the monitoring and a lot of the finances of a CSP Azure account are going to be controlled and monitored by the reseller. They're put in your responsibility. You can contact us, though, at Cloud Solutions, and we can help you with some of the best practices concerning that. All right, but now we want to create a file share, and then we want to connect our system to that file share. So we're going to go ahead and click Files. In the upper left-hand corner here, just go ahead and click File Share. I'll just enter in any old name here, DH-Lab File Share. May give it a certain size, or in this case they call it quota, so 4 gig. Click OK. And it's pretty instantaneous. From there, we go ahead and we select our file store location. And in order to connect, now ultimately what we're doing here is it's not going to be block level storage. It'll be file level storage, but this is a very simple, inexpensive way for you to add network sharing to a number of computers. So that's ultimately what our goal here. So now that we've created that 4 gig worth of share, we're going to connect to it. So we simply click Connect. And on the right-hand side here, you're given a series of different instructions depending on you are connecting from Windows or from Linux. Bottom line is, though, it may make it pretty simple for you by including the key, which is this long string of characters down here, and the network address, which is this group of characters here, so that you can use a command prompt and connect a network drive directly to it. So the easiest way to do that is just as you would suspect. We're going to go ahead and copy everything that's in here. I found that copying it is a little strange. As you can see too, I got rid of this arrow at the front because that's actually not necessary, and you would end up backspacing and deleting that anyway. So yeah, so from everything from the command net use all the way down to the end of the key, I'm going to go ahead and copy all that, and I'm going to open up a command prompt. You can either do this in a command prompt, or you can go to Windows PowerShell. Either one will do the same function. I'm going to go ahead and paste that in there, but I'm not going to hit Enter. So one of the things that we discovered through filming this demonstration was that it turns out they actually, well, it doesn't turn out, it's very clearly stated, as you can see right here in the information, that you're going to need port 445 to be opened in order for you to establish this network connection. Unfortunately, a lot of ISPs keep port 445 closed for security reasons. Now, Comcast, being the ISP that we actually use through the lab here as an example, they close that port. Now, you certainly can call your ISP, open that port, and that's actually what we would recommend for most of your circumstances. For us, just to make this demonstration a little easier, though, I'm going to move over to my other computer here and do it on our corporate LAN, which already has that port open, and then we can complete the demonstration. So let's move over to that computer. Okay, so here we are on my Microsoft Surface, and we are back on the same exact portal that we just were. This is definitely highlighting one of the features of cloud computing. We couldn't necessarily do everything on one system, so we were able to move to another and just as easily connect to the same portal and make those changes with a slightly different environment. Speaks to the features. But let's get to the point here. I'm going to go ahead back to exactly where we were. I'm going to go ahead and select the DH-Lab demo resource group, DH-Lab test, and I'm going to go ahead and select files, select the specific file share, click connect, and then here is again our command that we're going to put into a command prompt. So I'll go ahead and copy this information in here, save again for the arrow right at the top there. I will next open a command prompt and paste that in there. For those of you eagle-eye viewers, you may have noticed here in brackets we have drive letter. That is something we are going to have to get rid of and put an actual drive letter in here. I'll go ahead and use J. Everything else is pretty much the same, so I will go ahead and hit enter. That's it. That quickly, the command is successful, and then I can show you if you go into File Explorer, bring that up here, I go to this PC, you can see my D&H Lab file share right here, and there's nothing in there. Now, just to show you, I can hit New, and we'll go ahead and just put a text document that says, oh, hello Azure, and then to show you how instantaneous this is and that our file share is working properly, I'll go back to Azure and click, oops, let's just close some stuff so it refreshes. I'll go ahead and click on our file share again, and you can see our text file is already uploaded to the file share. All right, well, there you have it. So that is how you would go and create a file share online and then connect it to any of your client PCs within your network. Pretty straightforward, very simple. There, of course, are many other options and features to do with file sharing. You can add encryption, as we mentioned before, privacy, levels of authorization, things like that. This video was merely just how to go ahead and create that initial file share. For more information on how to dive deeper into that, you can contact us at cloudsolutions@dnh.com and we can help walk you through. Otherwise, stay tuned. We eventually will be padding this entire video library with all of those details. So when it comes to things like encryption or different levels of authorization, connecting Azure AD to it, we will address those in more advanced videos in the future, so please stick around. And if this is the last one you're viewing for the day, have a great one.